Wiafe, MD, Ezinnne, PhD, and Aantuu Mengistu, psychology doctoral student, 4th year. And yes, Aantuu was in my 6th grade class, and I am so proud of all of these girls. Women of faith, yes. We're going to get started by having our head elder come up and pray for us. Thank you, Joe.
Would you bow your heads with me for prayer this afternoon? Loving Father, as you have brought us back in this gorgeous Sabbath day to listen to some of the studies that have been put together for us to learn a better way how to care for ourselves. Lord, we just ask you that you open our ears. I especially asked the one girl that I was talking to, said she was nervous. So Father, I ask you that you calm her nerves. We're just here to learn and to listen. Mm-hmm. And it's just amongst God's people, his church, his family. So Father, be with them and be with all of us who are listening, that today may be the day that we learn something new as to how to have a more peaceful and happy life. Let's pray all this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. All right, coming up, ladies. And while they're coming up, I'll just come over here, sorry. While they're coming up, they're going to do the presentation, and then when they are through around 3 o'clock or 3:10, we'll have time for question and answer. No questions unless they generate something where they want feedback. No questions until the end, okay? Because we are recording this and it is online. All right, and then what we'll do is we'll have the mic over there and you'll come up, you'll have 2 minutes to ask a question, okay? All right, and then there's a hatch in the floor that'll open up and swallow you if you don't do it. I'll tell you when 2 minutes are up. Okay, let's get started.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It's just so nice to be here and also to see familiar faces from Campus Hill Church. It feels like home away from home and still home. So today I'll be joined with my friends, Ezinnne and Aantuu. So we've grown up together and we've sang together growing up. And so when we got asked to come to this church, I thought what better way to just allow put all of what we're learning in one context with going about the gut, the body, and the brain. So we're going to do that today. So just like brief introduction, there's been a little bit of that just today. So I am Adwoa Wiafe. I am currently a fellow at Loma Linda getting my preventive medicine training, and then I got my family medicine residency as well. So I'll be completing in June, so it is coming up.
And my name is Aantuu. Currently, I'm a 4th year student at Loma Linda. I'm studying clinical psychology, and I'll be done next year. So yeah, nice to meet everyone.
Hi everyone, my name is Ezinnne. I graduated from I finished my PhD in Loma Linda in 2021, and currently I'm a bacteriologist, microbiologist, and molecular geneticist, and I currently work at UCLA in the Gut Health Center, Microbiome Center, and the Veterans Affairs in LA. And I like bacteria.
Thank you so much. So to start, I just wanted to start with a Bible verse coming from 3 John chapter 2, verse 2, and it says, "Dear friend, I hope all is well with you, that you are healthy in the body as you are strong in spirit." And so we believe that God wants us to be healthy. When we are healthy, we're really able to have our minds function well and also be able to be present with our friends, our family, and, really, enjoy life to the fullest. And I love what Jesus said, that when he came, that you may enjoy life and that your life will be full. And we know that even though we deal with aches and pains of this world, we look forward to where health will be perfection in the eternity. And so today we're going to learn a little bit more about our brain and our gut and the relation that they have with each other. Before we start, I just want to say that we're not here to offer personal medical advice. So, this is definitely something to discuss with your physician. If you have some in-tune, needs for yourself, this is more like general information for us to just make sure that you can keep yourself well and keep yourself healthy. So the nervous system is a very complex system. The way that God created our bodies is so thoughtful, and he literally thought about everything. And our bodies, they all have little parts to each other that work not in isolation, but in conjunction to each other. So when the Bible says that we are one body, right? Many parts of one body, we definitely see it down to the molecular level that no body part is operating in isolation, but in conjunction with each other. So the nervous system, there are many parts to that. It starts with the central part, which is mainly the brain and the spinal cord. So that's what we call the central nervous system, the brain and the spinal cord. And then from that, we have the peripheral nervous system that pretty much goes into the peripheries, just the way it's saying. So the peripheral nervous system entails the somatic, the autonomic, and the enteric nervous system. So the somatic nervous system is mainly the way we can move, moving our bodies, our muscles. That's the somatic system. The autonomic system, those are ones that we really cannot control as much. They're a little bit more just the automatic, the way that the name is, they're more autonomic in that way. And so you might have heard of your parasympathetic and your sympathetic nervous system. So one of them, the parasympathetic, mainly is for your rest and your digest. And they happen more when you are more at places of rest. The sympathetic, that's more of your fight or flight response that your body has. So we have mechanisms that respond to whatever's happening in our environment, either to be in fight or flight mode or in rest or digest mode. So right now, most of us are in our digest and rest mode. So especially after we had a nice meal, some of us might start feeling a little sleepy, but we will be as active as we can so that we can help you be awake for this presentation. And then the other part is the enteric nervous system. So that is the nervous system that's happening in our gut. So all of these, they're not working in isolation, they're all working together. So this is an image that can further drive this point home of the sympathetic and the parasympathetic all coming together and contributing to our gut system. So remember, the parasympathetic system is more for your rest and digest. So they go together, that in order to digest well, it's best done when you are in a state of rest. When we are more in a place of unrest or more in alertness, or if we are, an animal's trying to chase us, the last thing our body wants to do is digest our food. The problem with our society today is a lot of times we are often in a fight or flight response. We are constantly stressed out. We are, thinking about all the things throughout the day. We're not very good about giving us spaces to rest. I think God was definitely thinking about us when he said, you need to take time off every week. We, especially in Southern California, right? And then every night we reflect that, right? We need to stop and we need to rest and digest. So both systems are very important. Because if you have a bear running at you, the last thing you want to do is rest and digest, right? So they both have their roles and they all need to be put in their places. So if you look at the bottom right side of the screen, you'll see the nervous system, the enteric nervous system. So that is actually the lining of your gut. So what they've actually seen inside of our intestines is our intestine has an interconnected web of nerves and neuronal tissue. And that this enteric nervous system is actually known as the second brain. So the enteric nervous system, as we've seen, gets signals from our sympathetic, it gets signals from our parasympathetic, but it also works and does its own thing and helps with gut motility and the way it functions and secretions. And so it is something known as the second brain, because we've seen that what affects our gut, what's going on in here, actually affects what's going on up here as well. So we've noticed that when our bodies are in hyperdrive or we're anxious, sometimes it makes people more prone to have problems with their gut and their digestion. And then we've also seen that people that have problems with up here tend to also have problems down here. So it's like hard to know which one came first. So the brain sends out input to the gut via hormones, as well as using enteroendocrine cells. So it's not just the nerves that are active here going back and forth, but it's also hormones that are also going back and forth, and like things going in and out of your bloodstream. So what we eat plays a role in how the rest of our body is doing for that reason. And it goes all the way up to our brain. Okay, so we have what is called now the gut-brain axis. So a major nerve that goes from the gut to the brain is the vagal nerve, the vagus nerve, and that's the one that's majorly contributing with the parasympathetic nervous system. And so the gut-brain axis is a term used to describe the bidirectional connection between the central nervous system and the enteric nervous system, aka the brain and the gut. So these are very intimately connected. As mentioned before, the emotional and cognitive functioning, they're very much linked to how our GI system is functioning. So if you want to test that, if you eat a very high carb meal, what's going to happen? You're going to feel the food load, and then you're going to get sleepy, and you're going to get tired. And oftentimes people feel brain fog, after that time. But if we eat a diet that's, high in fiber, not too heavy, just enough, we're going to feel more alert. We're going to feel more, our minds to be more clear. And so there's definitely a relation there. The gut not only has the hormones and also the nerves, but it also has microbiota, which are pretty much bacteria. And they send signals to the brain and vice versa through multiple channels via blood, hormones, and nerves as well. And so this will be a nice connection to my friend who loves bacteria to tell us a little bit more about the gut microbiome.
Thank you, Adwoa. Hi again. So I'm going to take us to school-ish on a Saturday afternoon. So how many of us think of the bacteria in our gut? Is it something that's actively on our minds? No? He does. So we all need to be like him. So it's at the back of your mind, so we're going to bring it to the guts of your mind. No, I'm kidding. So I'm not going to go into specific scientific technicalities and complexities, because if not, we have to camp out in the church, and I don't think that's allowed because it's going to take a long time. So I'm going to give a general overview of the human gut bacteriome. So we've been hearing microbiome, right? I'm going to talk about that in a second, but we're going to specifically focus on the bacteriome because I like bacteria, and it's basically fancy-sized words could always be dissected, and it just means the bacteria in the human gut. And while I'm gonna touch on general health and how it's related to the bacteria in our gut, I'm gonna focus it more specifically on the gut-brain axis. So, what is the gut microbiome? See, that's a good definition. But when we're thinking of science words, we have to think bigger. So microbiome, while you're right, the bacteria in the gut is part of the microbiome does include a community of microorganisms. So you have bacteria, viruses, fungi, and other microbes that are in the gut. So we don't only have bacteria, but today I'm focusing on only bacteria. So these other microorganisms do play a role in the functioning of the second brain, which is the gut microbiome, but I am focusing on the bacteria because I think they're cool. So what is the gut microbiome? If you wanted to give a standard definition, just the community of microorganisms that reside in the gut or in the digestive system, another word for gut. And these bacteria have numerous functions that include, but not limited to, nutrient metabolism, modulating host energy balance. Anytime you see the word host, it refers to the human host. We're the human host. They regulate inflammatory immune responses, enhance intestinal barrier function, and of course the gut-brain axis communication. So these bacteria are like little soldiers that help facilitate activity between different parts of the body. We're not focusing on, today we're focusing on gut-brain, but the microbiome or the bacterium also help in other gut to other body part functions. So these, please, if you have graphic dizziness from graphics like this, please let me know, and I could easily take that off. But those are bacteria swimming around, similar to how they will swim around in the gut, right? So these bacteria are involved in numerous functions. I feel like they don't get enough credit for what they actually do in the gut. They do a lot of things, and I'm only mentioning about 7, but there are so many. And within these pathways or general pathways that I have listed here, they do more things. So they are involved in breaking down of complex carbohydrates, fibers, proteins, and that our bodies cannot necessarily digest on their own. And this helps to enable the better absorption of nutrients. They produce essential nutrients. Some bacteria produce vitamins like B vitamins, K vitamins, short-chain fatty acids, which I'll talk about a little bit later, that support gut metabolism and health. They're also involved in regulating metabolism by influencing the energy that's absorbed from the food we eat. They protect against pathogens. So picture them like little soldiers, like in the slide, where they kind of clump together and protect your gut from invading or bad bacteria species. And they regulate the immune system. They maintain your gut barrier. Some bacteria produce kind of like lubrication for the gut to protect it from harmful pathogens. And then coming to the gut-brain part, bacteria are actively involved in producing neurotransmitters like serotonin or dopamine that influence mood, stress levels, and cognitive function, right? So since we don't really think about the bacteria in our gut, it is important because you need more bacteria in your gut. You need a diverse class of bacteria in your gut, right? And this is considered, as scientists, we see that a diverse microbiome is considered essential for optimal health, right? And especially in relation to brain function and just a balanced overall healthy or a health well-being of the human. And this diverse microbiome supports communication between the gut and the brain, like Adwoa mentioned, influencing mood, stress levels, digestion, all the things I mentioned before. But on the flip side, too much bacteria, if you have too much bacteria, you're going to have good bacteria and bad bacteria, right? And the problem or the issue lies when we have dysbiosis. And dysbiosis is an imbalance or disruption in that diversity of the gut microbiome where there is a shift, right? Where there's a shift where we have more harmful bacteria than beneficial bacteria in the gut. So what are the causes of dysbiosis? All ill health, as scientists, we like to claim this, starts with dysbiosis in the gut, right? Because I will talk a little bit later of how we are seeing the bacteria play specific role in different diseases. So the causes or the causes of dysbiosis are not unilateral. So one thing could affect another and another thing could affect the cause. And I'll talk about that a little bit later too. So we have poor diet, high intake of sugars, processed foods, unhealthy fats. We often term that the Western diet or the high-fat diet. They cause a shift in the microbiome, leading to dysbiosis, right? Chronic stress causes a shift in the microbiome. The use of antibiotics, which sometimes is beyond our control, causes a shift. It kills off both the healthy and the bad bacteria, not sometimes, which leads to dysbiosis. There's always a shift in the gut microbiome, sleep deprivation, not living an active lifestyle. And these lead to consequences, right? Gut inflammation, weakened immune system, and brain and mood disorders. The interesting thing is that the consequences of dysbiosis are also the signs of dysbiosis. There's an interplay between both of them. The causes could be the signs, and the signs could be the causes. It's like a chicken or the egg situation, like Adwoa said. It's very unique and very interesting. So you have digestive issues, and these are just broad spec definitions, because if I go into the details again, we'll be here for such a long time. So skin conditions could be linked to dysbiosis, mood swings, and generally mental health challenges. So the concept of bacteria playing a role in gut health is often very abstract, like we've seen, right? You don't really think and be like, oh, okay, if I eat rice today, the E. coli in my gut is gonna be happy. We don't think like that, right? As scientists, unfortunately, we do, if you're very interested in the bacteria, because you have to feed the happy bacteria, right? So the happy bacteria feeds you. We, like my field, I'm involved actively in studying specific bacteria. If you look on my slide, in those little bacteria drawings, I have specific names of bacteria because I'm trying to remove the disconnect with not seeing the bacteria as actually individual entities that play a role in our gut. They are there, they have names, and they're hanging out with us all the time, good and bad. So I'll give specific examples. I'm giving broad functions of bacteria in the gut. Again, just to reiterate that these are not all the functions, but immune system modulation, for example, right? There's specific bacteria, like if I mention Fusobacterium something, it's not gonna mean anything to you. But those bacteria modulate immune response by producing, for example, anti-inflammatory cytokines, right? And these cytokines are basically, in simpler terms, proteins that reduce inflammation from the body, basically. And they act like a brake on the immune system, right? So if you get infected with something or you have some inflammation-inducing condition, these anti-inflammatory cytokines produced by this the bacteria act as a brake to prevent the immune system from overreacting. That's what I mean by that. And then there's production of some gut-associated lymphoid tissues, right? These are cells that are produced or influenced by the gut microbiome to maintain intestinal barriers. And then we have the production of compounds. So these bacteria are actively producing compounds from the food we eat, more often than not, to produce compounds such as short-chain fatty acids that also improve the gut function and prevent leaky gut. They kind of lubricate the gut and seal. They produce something called tight junctions. I didn't want to get too technical, but they basically cause the intestinal permeability to not be, there shouldn't be a leak in your gut, basically. And then, like I mentioned in the beginning, they produce neurotransmitters such as serotonin. Specific bacteria produce or activate tryptophan, right, which we could find in amino acids, right? They're amino acids, and then they convert this to serotonin. So these bacteria are very, very active in producing some of the compounds that necessitate positive health outcomes. Actually, going back to this slide, on one of the bacteria, I have Akkermansia muciniphila. This bacteria has in recent years in science, been shown to play a role in a lot of metabolic functions in the gut. And I recently published a paper talking on the benefits of having this bacteria in your gut. But I'll talk a little bit more about Akkermansia in a little bit. So the relationship between gut bacteria and various factors is bidirectional, like Adwoa said, meaning that not only can external factors influence the gut or the composition of the gut microbiome or the gut bacteria, but the gut bacteria itself can also have a reciprocal impact on those same factors. For instance, diet could influence the microbial community in the gut. It could change it, it could alter it, it could shift it. But the bacteria could also affect the metabolic processes, so it's a give-take situation. So this complex interplay highlights the importance or the dynamic nature of the gut microbiota relationship. So let's talk about exercise. It's kind of interesting. A lot of people don't think, how does exercise affect those tiny little bugs in my gut, right? It's kind of a wild thought to think about. But basically, if you think about it, if you're doing aerobic exercises like running or cycling, right, the body would not only prioritizes delivering oxygen and nutrients to working muscles, but it also causes changes in the circulation of the gut. And this has several effects on these gut bacteria that live in the gut. For example, there are two major phyla of bacteria. They are Firmicutes and Bacteroidetes. May not mean anything to us, but they're bacteria strains that when we exercise, blood is delivered to the gut, right? And these bacteria take nutrients from that blood that is delivered to the gut, and then they produce short-chain fatty acids, and then they produce more compounds that other bacteria are able to live off, thrive off, and then produce essential compounds for us. Also, when you exercise, the gut epithelium gets a boost in nutrients such as glucose, amino acids, oxygen, which directly supports the microbial growth and activity. And it also provides these nutrients for the other beneficial bacteria to grow. Another important aspect of exercise that Adwoa talked about is gut motility, which is important. It's basically the movement of food and waste through the gut, right, through the digestive tract. And exercise increases this movement, which then helps the movement of the bacteria and their metabolites. The metabolites are simply the compounds that are produced by the bacteria, good or bad, in the intestinal tract. And this constant movement leads to a reshuffling of the bacteria, preventing the growth of harmful bacteria that might otherwise thrive in like stagnant conditions when you have more of a sedentary lifestyle. And then, so yes, bacteria is implicated when the gut is active, or when the human is active. So it's also strange to think, okay, I'm sleeping, and then the bacteria is doing something there. Yes. There's also increased blood flow during different sleep cycles, right? Deep sleep, more blood flow sometimes. And research has shown that, I recently did a sleep study on sleep and gut microbiome, but other research has found that sleep deprivation leads to a reduction in microbial diversity. And remember I said microbial diversity is good for a healthy lifestyle. Specifically, lack of sleep affects specific bacteria strains that are involved in immune regulation, right, and inflammation. But if you sleep, you have increased activity of species like lactobacillus and bifidobacterium, which enable the gut to produce, again, these compounds that we need to survive and thrive. Also, during sleep, remember I said during exercise, gut motility is active, basically. But during sleep, the gut motility slows down, which can allow the beneficial bacteria more time to then ferment undigested fibers. And this slows down, or this allows the bacteria to break them down more efficiently. And when they're broken down more efficiently, it promotes immune regulation. Also, it has been shown in some of our studies that the gut bacteria actually have their own circadian rhythm, just like we do. So they're more active when we're active, and they're more slowed down when we're slowed down. And it causes them time to regenerate, divide, and continue to promote gut health. And then positive social interaction. How does me saying hi to Adwoa and having a wonderful Sabbath afternoon affect my gut bacteria, right? Everything is all connected. This part links more directly to what Adwoa was talking about the parasympathetic system, nervous system, the rest and digest system. So when you're having positive social interactions, it causes a relaxation response in the body, right? And what does a relaxation response in the body do? It leads to increased blood flow to the gut. Again, nourishes the gut microbiome. It also reduces cortisol levels. And this is important because an increased level of cortisol, which is associated with stress, affect the gut by causing more leaky gut permeability, which alters the gut microbiome, bacterium, leading to dysbiosis. And then also the positive interaction between the gut-brain axis, which is the two-way communication system that Adwoa described. When you are socially engaged in a positive way, you are rested and digesting. The vagus nerve, which Adwoa talked about, is activated, and this sends signals from the brain to the gut, right? And this signaling influences the activity of the bacteria. For example, it has been shown to increase the abundance of certain bacteria, such as Akkermansia, again, the one bacteria that we all love right now in science, and other bacteria such as Lactobacillus and Bifidobacterium. So it leads this bacteria species to be able to produce cytokines, and these cytokines are helpful in immune regulation. And then I said I was going to talk a little bit about diet, which plays a crucial role in shaping the gut microbiome, right? Prebiotics, which are found in fiber-rich foods, and Adwoa is going to talk a little bit more on the lifestyle, but this is just me breaking it down to the molecular part to remind us that the bacteria in our gut are very important, and they're the ones they're the soldiers of the gut, basically. They're actively helping us to maintain good health and good immune system. So these prebiotics, such as fiber-rich foods, vegetables, whole grains, serve as the food for the beneficial bacteria, right? And it promotes their growth and their activity. So when the bacteria are fed with these good prebiotics, they are then able to work on the digestion of our other foods that we eat. And then probiotics found in fermented foods like yogurt, sauerkraut, introduce beneficial life bacteria to the gut, which can help restore balance, especially after disruptions like antibiotic use, which I said can sometimes be unavoided. And on the other hand, if we eat high-fat diet, high sugar, high processed foods, which we so aptly term the Western diet, you then lead to the overgrowth of harmful bacteria such as Clostridium difficile. We've seen a lot of those infections in the hospital. E. coli causing different diseases, and Enterococcus faecalis. These are just specific examples to remind us that these bacteria are actually there. So you kind of see a dysregulation in the gut when you eat healthy versus when you don't. We are able to track this in the lab, and I will explain how in just a moment. And of course, the opposite is the case. When you have negative lifestyle, poor diet leads to poor gut conditions. What do we see? IBS, IBD, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, weight gain. We actually are doing studies where we see specific strains of bacteria which promote resistance to weight loss because those bacteria are now proliferated in the gut. Lack of exercise leads to impairs the gut motility, decreases the diversity, again, leading to IBS, IBD. Lack of sleep does the same thing. Chronic stress does the same thing. It's all linked to the inability of these beneficial bacteria to be present and to act on the gut and to maintain, it prevents us from maintaining a good lifestyle. So I was talking about the evidence we see in literature. So people are like, how do you study this bacteria, right? So in the lab, I'm able to look at people's microbiome. And this microbiome that I look at provides kind of like a snapshot into the individual's health. It might be traumatizing if I describe how I study people's microbiome, but if you want to find out that, you could talk to me after. Let's keep our foods in our stomachs. But basically, if I get an individual A, and I look at the microbiome of individual A, I see the presence of certain bacteria that tell me, okay, individual A is healthy because this species of bacteria is in high abundance, so this species of bacteria is in high abundance, versus individuals B and C who have bad bacteria or pathogenic bacteria that are in high abundance. It points to the specific diseases. Recently, we did a study on Crohn's, and we saw the presence of various species of E. coli, for example, that were in high abundance in that person's gut. And those bacterial, I call them bacterial signatures, are indicative of the type of ill health the individual has. So I'm currently doing another study on a specific strain of a bacteria where we're seeing in veterans, right? Once the veterans have a high abundance of these strains of bacteria, they are resistant to the weight loss therapies that we're trying to give them. I was talking to Adwoa about that, and she was mentioning that some patients do everything, exercise, diet, and they're not able to lose the weight in like obesity. And the reason we're saying in the labs is that they do have some specific strains of bacteria. We call them obesogenic strains of bacteria. And it, again, shows us the importance of these bacteria, because we could be chasing after something else, not realizing that our gut microbiome is crying for help. So to bring it back to the gut bacteria and gut brain, like Adwoa said, it's a two-way communication system that allows the brain and the gut to influence each other, right? So the gut bacteria help to regulate this by actively producing some of the compounds and the important things that we need to maintain a healthy lifestyle. And more, not shocking anymore to scientists, but more recently, we've seen that some of the harmful bacteria, when they're over-proliferated, the bacteria themselves are able to cross the blood-brain barrier, which is insane. The blood-brain barrier's job is to function to protect the brain, right? But we are seeing bacteria like Escherichia coli, E. coli, Listeria, monocytogenes in the brain. And they are causing diseases, or they're linked. We can't say cause. It's not a cause and effect. It's more bidirectional. But we're seeing links to neuroinflammation, and we're seeing links to conditions such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, meningitis, because these bacteria could cross the blood-brain barrier, or they could release some toxic compounds. There are some bacteria that produce LPS, lipopolysaccharides, right? These compounds are also toxins that also could cross the blood-brain barrier. So if the gut bacteria is not healthy, guess what? It's affecting every aspect of our lives, our skin, our eyes, our health, our teeth, our mouth, our oral health. So supporting this diverse microbiome or bacterium through a fiber-rich diet, probiotics, stress management, and proper sleep are one of the few things, or some of the few things that are necessary or crucial for maintaining and protecting both the gut health and the brain health. So by promoting a balanced microbiome, we can optimize brain function, reduce inflammation, and support cognitive well-being. So I just want us to remember that if you forget every other thing and the fancy bacteria names I tossed around, just remember that these little bugs that we can't see and we often don't think about are basically carrying the immune system, especially in the gut. We can't get all these compounds. We can't get the butyrates. We can't get the short-chain fatty acids that the body needs, that the brain needs. We can't get the neurotransmitters. We can't get some of the hormones that we need if these bacteria are not constantly making them and producing them. So the goal is to keep your good bacteria good and fed and healthy, and more than your bad bacteria, because if the good bacteria are not fed and happy and they're not in high abundance, it would lead to dysbiosis, and the dysbiosis would lead to some tragic health outcomes. We're seeing links from gut bacteria to cancer, gut bacteria to Parkinson's, gut bacteria to pretty much, if you take any disease and you analyze the gut of that individual, there's always dysbiosis. There's always dysbiosis. So yes, feed your gut bacteria and, all will be well with us. Thanks, Adwoa.
Thank you for giving us the science behind all that. Oftentimes we don't realize what's going on underneath the ground, and we see what's happening with our eyes, not realizing all that happened underneath the ground before we could see it. And so here's some signs of things that we can see as signs of possible, that signs that your gut probably needs some work. So constant fatigue. Fatigue in itself is a sign that there's some brain fog going on. That can be a sign of the gut dysbiosis. We also have seen it with depressed mood, even anxious mood as well does play a role in how our gut is doing. I often tell my patients that are struggling with depressed mood or anxiety that exercise is so helpful for that. Actually, they've even seen that, that exercise is gold standard for treatment for depression and works just as good as an SSRI does. So SSRIs, a lot of the very common drugs we use to treat depression, But at the same time, the struggle with depression is motivation. So it's hard to have someone who's challenged with motivation to be motivated to exercise, and then where the medication can be helpful to at least help someone with the dysfunction going on in the brain. And then social avoidance as well. Those are also signs like anhedonia, or just decreased pleasure in doing things. A lot of these things you might even see in like the depression screening, like little interest in doing things. Like they'll ask you that in your doctor's office. Memory impairments as well. It's pretty shocking to see that diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, even autism, obesity, schizophrenia, they've seen links to the gut dysbiosis being a sign of that. So that's another reason why we really need to watch out for what's going on in our gut, and what we eat matters, how we exercise matters. Very common syndrome that a lot of people have is what we call irritable bowel syndrome. Oftentimes it's a diagnosis of exclusion. What that means is like they rule out everything else, and then then they end up with this diagnosis. People that have this condition often have like chronic abdominal discomfort symptoms on and off, and then associated with changes in bowel habits. So without really no known cause, because they run all the tests and they couldn't really find a reason why. And so some people have more of like a diarrhea predominant. Some people may have more of a constipation predominant form.
Adwoa. And that's why we're pushing more for like gut studies, because you go to the hospital and you do the routine diagnosis, but more often when we see patients with IBS and they come into the labs and we analyze their stool, we're able to immediately tell that this patient has IBS because of the type of bacteria they have in their gut. So that's why gut screening is also important, because it could tell you a lot about the disease the patient is carrying.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And so, what we do know, is that there's a lot of inflammation going on in the intestines. So we see a lot of inflammatory markers. And as we've learned from Ezinnne, that can get leaked out and cause problems elsewhere. People that have this condition, they've seen like those that have higher risk factors are those that have had an infection before, maybe gotten antibiotic treatment, and then it just kind of messed up their gut microbiome. So now they're having these chronic inflammation symptoms because there's a dysregulation, or like a imbalance between the good and the bad bacteria in the gut. And then with this syndrome, it's often associated with mood disorders, phobias, sleep disturbances. And again, it's hard to tell which ones came first, whether it was the mood, dysregulation that came first that's causing the gut dysfunction, or whether it's the gut dysfunction that is causing now the mood problems. So guess what the treatments often are for this? Oftentimes it's change in diet. Changes in diet, oftentimes also, very much motivation to exercise as well, to bring more of that, regulation. And then there's also the symptomatic treatment. Treatments for someone that's dealing with diarrhea, they might give medications to help with that. Constipation, they might give medications to help with that, the symptomatic treatment. But very important piece in treating is the lifestyle. To help, get the gut in a healthier place. And so now, that leaves us with the question of how can we keep our gut healthy? No matter what condition we have, no matter what problem we have, we all should be intentional about how we can keep our bodies and our guts healthy. When we keep our gut healthy, guess what? We're keeping our bodies healthy too. When we're keeping our gut healthy, we're also keeping our minds healthy as well. So many diseases can be really helped by making these changes. It's like very simple that we've known for a long time. Simply if we eat healthy and exercise, that does a lot for our body in many, areas of life. And so what we really want to look for is really having a high fiber content in our foods. Now, where do we get fiber? Fiber is pretty much eating things that came from the ground. So foods that are fruits, your vegetables, your whole grains, your plants, really, that's where you get your fiber. That's right, yep. So we've heard that before. And then we want to avoid our pro-inflammatory foods. So what are our pro-inflammatory foods? Processed, yep. Those are our processed meals. Pretty much I tell my patients, like, the least it looks like coming from the ground, the more processed it is. Okay. So, for example, potato and a potato chip look very different, okay? So potato chip is probably quite processed, so we should probably choose the potato over the potato chip. Same with the fries, right? It's hard. Fries are yummy. All of these foods, they just hit the receptors in our brain, you know? It's kind of like a drug, and it actually does work that way in our minds where it just hits the dopamine, you know, the way. So it can get very addicting, but when we're eating more of the processed foods, we're causing more inflammation, more gut-brain issues. We'll have more fatigue, more depressed mood, more anxiety. So we see all of these things, they're all related. They're all related. But when we eat a food that is anti-inflammatory, so not only are the fruits and vegetables, you know, healthy for you, but they are actually fighting inflammation. Pretty much like most, if not all diseases, like, you know, have something to do with inflammation. So when we're eating foods that are anti-inflammatory, there's even foods that are anti-cancer, it is fighting against inflammation. So we've seen people that have autoimmune conditions, when they eat a pro-inflammatory diet, they feel better. So there's a lot that we can do just by simply feeding the bacteria that is healthy, right? So when we eat well, we'll see like improved memory, cognitive, you know, ability, working memory, like we'd be able to function better. I don't know if you watch the Blue Zones documentaries, but they've seen like some places where dementia is like hardly there. Why? You know, they see like people are active, they're constantly walking up hills, they're eating pro-inflammatory diets. So a lot of these chronic diseases that we're facing, unfortunately, tend to be tied with what we're putting in our bodies. And so we definitely can keep our gut and our entire body, you know, healthy by eating foods that are rich in antioxidants. If you're not sure what that looks like, the more colorful your plate is, the better. Because, you know, all the different colors have all different components and are feeding all different bacteria, all the, you know, the array of bacteria there. So you want to try to be as colorful as possible with your meals. Oftentimes what we call the standard American diet, or some people call it the SAD diet, is it tends to be yellow because there's not there's not much color there. But if we eat more, you know, of the you know, antioxidants foods, that high fiber foods, you'll tend to have a lot more color on your plate. Does anyone know what percentage of your plate should be vegetables and fruits? All right, I'm seeing, okay, yes. So if you were to divide your plate in fours, half of your plate should be vegetables and fruits. Half of your plate. And then the other quadrant should be a lean protein. So it should be things like beans, your legumes, your tofus, your lentils. I mean, there's a whole array of those lean protein options. And so if you're eating that way, then, you know, by default, you are eating like 75% of your plate is a plant-based source. The other quarter would be a whole grain, right? So a whole grain, those are your quinoas, your brown rice, your bulgur wheats. So pretty much those are your whole grains. So honestly, like, you can have your 100% of your plate be plant-based. You really can. But oftentimes we tend to have the vegetable be the condiment, right? And like everything else is the main attraction. Usually, you know, in a lot of diets, the meat is the main attraction, and then the vegetables are like the condiments, right? But it should be the other way around, right? The vegetables, the plant-based food should be the main attraction of our meals, and that's how we are keeping our gut and brain healthy. So that will just be a rule of thumb. If you look at your plate, every single meal that you have, how can I make this plate have half of my plate some kind of plant-based, you know, fruit, veggies? Am I having whole grains in my plate? Am I having lean protein in my plate? So you can choose to modify your plate to try to fit that. So we talked about exercise. Exercise is crucial. It is so important. There's so many things that happen when we exercise. Not only is blood flow going to our gut and like really supplying the really good bacteria, but blood flow is also going to your brain. So they found that people that exercise, are having their memories are improved. You're able to make connections well. So exercise is so important. So when we're skipping on exercise, we're doing a huge dysfunction to our bodies. So the recommended amount of exercise per week is 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise per week. So how can you tell is your exercise moderate intensity? If your exercises, you can sing, but you cannot sing, but you can talk. That's when you know it's a moderate intensity exercise. If you're able to sing, talk, do all sorts of things during your exercise, then you probably need to amp it up a little bit more. And if you are, not able to talk at all, then you know it's a high intensity exercise. So you want to do 150 minutes of that. So you can break it up however you want to. You can do 30 minutes 5 days a week, and you'll hit that number. And then you want to focus also on muscle building exercises. So when we build muscle, not only are we increasing our basal metabolic rate, but we're also fueling our brain. And the reason because of that, especially when we exercise our big muscles, there needs to be a lot of more blood flow to those muscles, to help them function. So then our blood flow becomes more efficient. So to improve your cognitive health, to improve your physical health and your gut health, exercise is crucial. You do not want to miss that. And again, it improves your mood. So you might as well just do it, and it also help you function in all areas of life. I mean, there's a reason why Daniel and his 3 friends, when they chose to eat vegetables, right, and not the king's meals, they were 10 times smarter than the king's meals. Okay, so this is something that is not, the science is showing that. But God has known that from the beginning, right? So another way to keep your brain healthy, sleep. This is one that gets overlooked so many times. Oftentimes our sleep has gone down and down and down. Our system, our time used to be run based on like the sun. So whenever the sun is up, that's when you're awake, right? And usually people would be waking up as the sun goes out, and they'll be going to sleep as the sun goes down. But we've kind of come away with that since we now have clocks. And we now have alarms. Everything's been standardized now. I've read this book called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. Totally recommend that book. But in that book, he was saying that since we've come away from that system of working with the times in the sun, our sleep has gone less and less and less. So we're admiring the reformers when they're like, yeah, I was up at 4 a.m. praying and all that. But then we realized that they were in bed by 7. So, so we've really let sleep go, and it's a wonder why we are high stress society. And as Ezinnne said, when we are constantly in this chronic stress mode, we are in this high sympathetic mode, we're feeding the bad bacteria as well. So sleep also, it triggers our rest and digest. We have what we call the motility, migrating motor complex at night. So it's like this system that really works well when you sleep, and it acts like a nice clean sweep through your gut, which is why oftentimes when you wake up, you need to go to the bathroom, because that's what's happening. So your sleep, it's not just the quantity, it is also the quality. Anyone know how much sleep we're supposed to be getting? All right. I'm hearing 8 to 10. I'm hearing 7. Yeah, 8. Okay, yeah. So it's 7 to 9 hours is mainly for the age group I'm seeing here. A lot younger needs more. But yeah, so that's the amount of sleep that we want to hit, but also our quality of sleep. So what that means is when you wake up, how well rested do you feel? Hey, if you wake up and you're still feeling so tired, then that might be a sign that you didn't sleep too well, or maybe you didn't sleep enough, right? Or if you're sleepy throughout the day, that's probably a sign you didn't get good sleep either. if you have a bed partner, if they ever tell you that you're snoring at night or you stop breathing at night, that is a good sign to go check in with your doctor, okay? Because that'd be a sign of something serious that you need to get checked out. And that's a lot of people have what's called sleep apnea. So if you don't get that treated, that'll also disrupt, so many things in your body. If you have sleep apnea, you don't use a CPAP, please use your CPAP. If it's uncomfortable for you, there are so many things that they can try to get you more comfortable in using your CPAP at night, because if you don't get that treated, you're putting yourself prone for heart disease, heart failure. So, it's best to just get that treated. I know it's uncomfortable, it's unattractive for some people, but it's worth it for your life. And then sleep hygiene techniques. So you want to be good about your sleep hygiene, because that is your way of protecting your sleep, especially since our society doesn't really protect our sleep very well. So a lot of us have these devices, right? It's very easy to scroll, especially at night, right? When you don't have much brain cells working anymore. So, or you may have your screen running or your TV running, but that is very much disrupting your sleep. Because it's kind of tricking your brain to be awake. It's having like certain rays that are like making your body think of sunlight. So our body is naturally equipped to work with the sun and the setting of sun. But with our screens, we are disrupting that natural pattern that our brain is doing. So we want to avoid the screen time, at least an hour before bed. Some people will choose to have nice dim lighting as well before, an hour before bed as well. So just avoid the OR lights during that time, because that'll also, make your brain feel like you need to be awake. And then just like having a nice routine, having a same wake up time and a same going to bed time, even on the weekends, that'll also help protect your sleep. If you have a sleep disorders, because those do exist, things like insomnia, where you just, no matter how hard you try, you just cannot fall asleep, or you may fall asleep, but you cannot stay asleep, that's a sign that you may have insomnia, and there are ways to get that worked on and ways to get that treated, and may be a sign of like some other underlying conditions, and also tend to go hand in hand with things like a lot of like mental health conditions, like anxiety, stress, and all that. So it's always good to get those things looked at and treated and not overlooked. So our sleep is very important in keeping us healthy. So other ways to keep your brain healthy, okay? So stress management. We already talked about how we're in a very high stress society. We're constantly on the go. We're not very good about protecting our rest. So it's very important that we have a strategy when it comes to stress management, because that'll help us calm us from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic and help us digest better. Avoid self-medication. What I mean by that, a lot of time people self-medicate with substances, may get into things that they're not supposed to get into, things like drug, alcohol, or just unhealthy habits, addictions in general. So you want to avoid your self-medication and go to actual, good treatment. And we also know that we believe in an ultimate healer who can definitely help us in our healing journey and get rid of things that we don't have to rely on substances to self-medicate, okay? Cultivating healthy relationships. We were also shown that how that also helps feed our healthy bacteria. Who would have thought, right? So having healthy communities, being able to be connected with each other. Church is like a solid way to do that, because we get to come together every week. We get to eat together. Your families, don't let those go away. Definitely cultivate those healthy relationships, because that is doing wonders for your physical, mental, and spiritual health. Express gratitude regularly. I put this in there because this is something that can be overlooked as well. When we are told through the Bible that we need to express gratitude, it's not just for funsies. This is actually doing a lot for us. They did a study, and one of my attendings, let me know about this, where they got a group of people and they had them do gratitude journals, where they were to list like 3 things they were thankful for, and they did that for an entire week. And they compared that with people who didn't do that. And it's not like, oh, I'm grateful for my family and my friends, like things that people always say, but it's like specific things like, wow, I really enjoyed being at church today and meeting all of my friends that I haven't seen in a long time. That was so nice, like, oh man, I feel so good about the meal I had today. People really cook so well. So, just appreciating the little things in life. And like when you do that, you also recognize how much God really loves you and cares for you. And it's like, wow, okay, God really has been looking out for me today. And so they showed that like people that did that consistently for 7 days pretty much had the same effect as somebody who was taking an antidepressant for 21 days. So I'll just leave that with you there. So express gratitude regularly. It's no small thing. And I'll just transition to Aantuu to kind of help us keep our brains healthy.
Thank you. How's everyone doing? We're good so far? Learning a lot? I feel like I'm learning a lot too. Every time they speak, I feel like I get smarter. So I hope you're on the same page. So as I was saying before, I work in mental health. I'm a student therapist. And so I'm going to be approaching this from a different lens. We talked about stress and how that can really affect your gut, right? So there's different disorders that can come about after experiencing chronic stress, what we call chronic stress, right? So this is like not just the normal amount of stress that we might experience where we are feeling threatened and our body's trying to get us back to homeostasis, a balanced state. This is after, right? So for instance, if I'm on a hike and I come across a bear, it's normal for me to experience stress, right? Because that's gonna allow my body to fight or flight. I'm probably gonna run away. But if after I am still experiencing that heightened state, that activated state, that's what we call chronic stress. It's prolonged. I should not be experiencing that type of activation even after the threat is gone. And so what we see a lot when people experience chronic stress, more prolonged stress, this could be from because of a lot of various things. It could be our environment that causes chronic stress. It could also be just internal issues. Maybe we are negative thinkers, and that just creates an environment internally where we just can't relax. There's so many things that could cause someone to experience chronic stress. And so today I'm just going to talk about a few of the things that we can do to manage our stress, to hopefully catch it before it becomes a bit more prolonged, right? So that's what my goal is for us to do today. So, like I was saying, what I think is important to first do, to just break it down, is to make sure that we know what our stressors are. So stressors are just the things that cause us stress. And it's different for everybody. It's not a one-size-fits-all. I think we all react to things differently. I mean, even like me and my sibling, my brother, we don't experience stress the same way. So first you have to identify your stressors. Then you have to notice how it affects your body, and then you're going to do something about it. And so I'm going to talk a bit more about these areas, and then I'm going to teach you some stress management techniques that I love teaching my patients, and then hopefully you get to use one of these in your daily lives, because I think that's really important too. Okay. So first, I would really like for you to do some reflection here and think about areas in your life that cause you stress. This could be natural disasters, world events, family relationships, work. It's different for everyone, but I think it's important for us to know what we're fighting before we are able to like put on our armor and go to war, right? So take like 1 minute to think about something. It doesn't have to be like this isn't the only thing that it could be, but think about the thing that might be causing you stress now. So you're gonna think about it, and then you're gonna turn around and tell your neighbor about it, because we're gonna encourage some social relationships right now. So I'll give you a minute, or even less than that, just because I wanna be okay with time. And feel free to share with your partner. Okay, nice. How was that? You can tell I'm a therapist because I love asking about your feelings. Oh, sounds like people are still talking. I'll let it go. Nice. Okay, were you able to identify some stressors? Yeah. I won't ask for you to share, but know that I want to know. Okay, so good. You've identified your stressors. Great, that's step one. Next step is to notice. Okay, so this is a actually really cool thing that our body does. So we were talking earlier about how you can notice when you are experiencing something. Like, for instance, if you're nervous, maybe you'll feel butterflies in your stomach, or maybe you'll feel like you have to go to the bathroom if you're nervous, right? This is something that we call interoception. So interoception is this ability that we have where we can understand what's happening inside of our body. And this is very important for us, especially because we want to be able to know how to attack something, right? When we're facing a challenge or an experience, it's better to know what we're facing. And so in order to know what we're facing, we have to really be in tune with what's going on internally. And so the next step is making sure that we notice what our body's trying to tell us. Sometimes our body tells us we need to go to the bathroom by having that sensation. Emotionally, our body's also trying to tell us something. So when we're feeling sad, we need to recognize why we're feeling sad, and we have to attend to that. So when you were thinking about that stressor that you just talked to your neighbor about, what did you notice happening in your body? So what I like to do when I teach this skill is imagine that you're scanning yourself from top to bottom. So it might help to close your eyes, but you do a body scan, and you bring up that stressor in your mind, and your body will have an automatic reaction to it. For me, whenever I'm stressed, I notice that my chest gets tight, and then my shoulders kind of like scrunch up like this, and my breathing gets a little bit more shallow. But for you, I want you to practice this skill. So bring up that stressor that you were just talking to with your friend about, and then start to body scan and see if you can point out some of the reactions that your body just naturally does when you think about that stressor. Does that make sense? Yes or no? Yes? Okay, so I'm giving you 1 minute to do that. Hey, notice what happens in your body when you do that. And then once you do that, you can share with your partner as well. I'm seeing like shoulders go up. Yeah, that's a common one. That's so sad. I hate that one. Yeah, that's a good one. I get that one too. Shivers, yeah. Yeah, so you see, this is our body trying to tell us to pay attention, right? Like, yeah, you are not doing okay. You got to deal with something that's causing you stress. Okay, so it's really good for us to be able to identify these things so that we're able to do something about them. So what can we do? This is one of my favorite skills. I'm gonna go here first. So this is one of the skills that they teach us very early on in school to tell our patients about, and that is called deep breathing. And so it sounds like so simple, but it actually is really interesting how the way we breathe can really impact how we feel. And that's because if you notice when you're stressed, like you're coming up against a threat, your body's in fight or flight, right? It has that adrenaline rush. And so what we're doing with this breathing method is we're flipping it, right? We're forcing our body to slow down and take deeper breaths and signaling to our brain that we are not under attack. And so when we're breathing in and breathing out, then our body's like, oh, okay, I'm safe. Oh, I don't have to worry about this presentation. It's no big deal, right? So I want us to practice this together because I really want you to be able to use the things that you learn here in your daily life because it's not even that hard. So you could do it. So this is called box breathing. So what you do is you inhale through your nose for 4 seconds. Then you're going to hold it for 4 seconds. Exhale through your mouth for 4 seconds, and then hold it again for 4 seconds. So the most important thing to remember with box breathing is not necessarily like the numbers or how many seconds you hold it for, but you want to make sure that you're breathing from your diaphragm. So whenever, you don't want to do chest breathing, because chest breathing really makes your brain think that you're stressed, because that's what happens when we're stressed, we chest breathe. We're going to do diaphragmatic breathing. So when I practice this with my patients, I tell them to put their hand on their stomach. And if your stomach is moving, that means you're doing it right. So let's do like 3 of these turns, okay? And then I'll count the seconds out, okay? So inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, and exhale. Hold. And inhale, hold, exhale, hold, inhale, hold, and exhale. Do some noticing what's happening in your body right now. What do you notice? Just think about it. Yeah, shoulders maybe hopefully going a bit down. Yeah, neck feeling more relaxed. Yeah, that was 3 times. It wasn't that bad, right? But it's so easy to do it, and so quickly does your body react to that slowing down. So that's something that we can be intentional about, especially when we're experiencing stress. Okay, the next one, I'm going to go back here. Next one is just some very concrete ways, strategies to avoid a stressor or to manage a stressor. This is what's called the 4 A's of stress relief. So the first is to avoid. You can use any of these things and in any circumstance that it's fit, but just thought I would give you some suggestions. So the first A is avoid. So a lot of needless stress can be avoided. This can be done by planning ahead or rearranging your surroundings just to make sure that you don't come across a stressor. So if you can, there are some stressors that fall under that category where you can just avoid them. Like, I don't want to talk to this person today. I'm just gonna, you know what I mean? I could do that. Okay, next one is alter. So this could just be being able to change a situation to make it a little bit less stressful. The third one is adapt. And so you can do this by changing just the way you look at things or your expectations of certain things. And then the last one is like the final, like if you can't do all these 3, then you're gonna do the 4th one, which is to accept the situation. So sometimes we just have to, right? It's a sucky situation. We just have to accept it. A lot of times I think about loss for this one. Like if you've experienced a loss, sometimes you can't change that, right? And it does cause some stress. And sometimes what is helpful in the healing process is the acceptance piece. So that's a good example to think about how to use these ones. Okay. My very last one is, I really like this one because I think it's so important, but I think we miss it a lot. And that's the way in which you speak to yourself has a really huge potential to change your mood and the way you approach stress. I don't think we give enough credit to the thoughts that we have that create an environment or a mood, and then which also impacts the way we behave, right? So for instance, if I'm thinking like, I really am not smart, I'm gonna bomb this presentation, right? What do you think that would do to my mood? And then what do you think that would do to my behavior? Right? Yeah, but then what if I thought instead, I worked really hard to prepare, and I'm proud of myself. How does that sound? And like, what do you think that would do to the way you feel? It's not that hard to tell that it changes, right? The way I feel, me even just saying those words to myself makes me feel better. And so I think it should not be underestimated the way that we talk to ourselves. A lot of the patients that I see often have this really negative thought pattern. They're always engaging in thoughts that, or believing the thoughts that come up in their brain that are negative. And the thing that I think is super important to remember is sometimes these thoughts are just thoughts, and they do not tell the truth. It's really important to differentiate thoughts, like these negative thoughts, from what we know is true. And sometimes these thoughts are just lies. And who's telling those lies, do you think? Yeah, so we don't want to believe them. So this is called reframing, right? Me being able to shift the way that I speak to myself, shift the way that I look at a certain situation by the words that I use and the words that I tell myself. So it's just a fancy therapist term to just mean shifting, okay? So that's reframing. And finally, I think this is just me trying to encourage everyone and advocate for mental health because of how important I think it is. And as you can see, right, like it's so ingrained in the way we are, how we interact with others, and our bodies too, right? I think it deserves to be part of the conversation just as much as our diet or our exercise might be. So that's me. Thank you so much for listening to our talk, and hopefully you learned something. I know I did. Thank you. Oh,
Yes. So yeah, this is our opportunity to give you the mic and ask us questions. And while you think about your questions, I just want to remind us that rest is important. And like God said, I can give you rest. And guess what that's doing for our bodies? Yeah. In Matthew 11:28-30, Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light." So, find rest, everyone. Any questions?
You guys can come up to this mic. That's a little big. Okay. Anybody have any questions? I know you don't want to get up. All right, I'll bring you the mic. They're used to me waiting on them. Whoops.
I also have a shameless
They're
plug
spoiled. Yes, they're spoiled.
for a book. This is a book. Yes, so I'll pass it around if you want to take a look. One of my attending physicians strongly recommend this book, and it said changed her life. So I'm in the process of reading it, but I encourage you for yourselves to take a look, and if you find it is helpful, then feel free. Oh, looks like we got a hand over here.
Okay, 2 minutes.
2 minutes. I'll give it to her, okay? Well, I'm glad you guys all this bring all this topic, and I see that you mentioned about the fiber. It helps our gut, but I didn't hear the water. Because I'm talking about 10 principles how to stay healthy. Water is number one. And I just see that you don't mention the water, because water is number one factor to your body to function better than those who don't drink much at all.
Absolutely.
Okay, just my question.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, you're very right. Water is so important. I mean, we're made out of 70% water. So we really should be drinking, a pretty good amount of water, at least 8 ounces glasses a day. Based on your weight, that may be higher or lower. But yes, you're right, it's very important. And also water in combination of fiber is very important. If we're eating a whole lot of fiber without much water, guess that's what it's gonna do. It's gonna plug us up real quick, yep. So it's very good to drink a good amount of water with your fiber intake. But yes, thank you for bringing that up.
I just want to add to it.
Yes, thank you for that, yeah.
You have talked about how we need to prepare ourselves for, to sleep better. What do you think of white noise?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that helps a lot of people. White
Yeah.
noise, rain, yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yep, that helps. Even there are some like meditation apps. There's this app I like called Abide, and they use rain in there as well. And it's a Christian-based app. You don't have to pay for it. There is like premium you can pay for, but they pretty much like I do this because there are some times when I may be anxious about something the next day or something, and I'm like awake. So I just turn to the Abide app, and like they do it's very scripture based. They go through a Bible verse, and like they have the person reading it in a very calming manner, and then after they're done with the meditation, then it just plays rain for a long time, and then before you know it, you're asleep. At least for me, like before I know it, I'm waking up to rain, and I'm like, oh yeah, so that's one resource you can use. There's many other apps as well.
And
but
how
yeah.
would you spell that app so I can put it on for those who are watching on live stream?
Thank you. Abide, Abide. Yeah, and again, you don't have to pay for it. It does have some things in the app that are just for paid prescriptions, but there are plenty there that is free. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? Oh, there. Oh.
When I get anxious, when I'm driving or something like that, instead of, like you said, take breaths, but I start saying all's well.
Oh, that's good.
And so calm me down, all is well, So that's my word these days,
Thank you.
calm me down.
It's a good way to reframe. For some people, other words come out, so it's good to have those types of words. Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. I took pictures of most of your slides, and one of them hit me. It's you're teaching us to identify Well, I identify very easily. It's the one on top right, natural disasters, world events. And so I know, since I know what I identify, I know what I'm not going to do last 3 hours before my sleep. Because if I do, that's going to interrupt my sleep. But guess what? When you're married 45 years to somebody who is not affected and he sleeps like a lamb, even snores, that could cause another problem in relationship, right? I used to be who says, hey, turn it off. So I sound demanding and all that because I want to, well, that sounded selfish to him. Well, I just want to hear this. I hear something, go to the kitchen, too late. It's in my mind till 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, no longer I do that. You can have whole night. I go to my room. I'll have my music. That happens after 45 years of marriage, and he can have, but you know what? Pretty soon, he turns it off. 2 minutes later, comes, give me a good rub on my feet, and there I sleep like a lamb. But you see, I wish I didn't demand that when I was younger. So younger people, don't do it. Freedom.
Single people don't have
That was my mistake. Yeah, that's right. But if you insist, and this bothers me, well, it doesn't bother him. He sleeps like a lamb, but it bothers me. So we are different, like you said. We are different. Yeah. So.
Thank you.
It's good to know our triggers, right, Aantuu? Yeah. When we identify our triggers, then we know how we can protect ourselves against those things.
Sometimes I get up like 3 o'clock in the morning, things like that. Is just because of not sleeping right or hearing something, or is there something? Because listening to things on the TV, when you get up 3 o'clock, what you do, pray, this, that, the Lord is waking you up for a certain thing. What is,
Yeah, great question. Yeah, I think before answering that question, it's good to know when did you fall asleep. So if you fell asleep at 7 p.m., then you wake up at 3 p.m., then that's perfectly fine. You're starting your day, right? But if you went to sleep at midnight and you're waking up at 3 o'clock, then you probably are going to be very tired, that morning. So if you're constantly waking up throughout the night and you don't know why, so that may be a sign of like some condition or maybe insomnia that may be happening, because some people struggle with staying asleep. Sometimes people know what it is. Sometimes it may be like anxiety, or maybe like they're a light sleeper and like some noise happens and then they just wake up. Or sometimes people may have some health condition, like sometimes people, if they're choking at night or if they're struggling to breathe or have something like sleep apnea, they might wake up like their body's waking them up because they can't breathe. So that's something that's worth exploring, especially if it's a pattern. So something also worth to check in with your doctor about. One thing that they would ask you to do is keep a sleep journal, so that you can track the patterns and just like, how do you feel when you wake? What do you notice is happening when you're waking up at night? What you don't want to do, because sometimes when people wake up, they try to go back to sleep, and sometimes for some people the sleep comes immediately. But if you try to go back to sleep and it's like 30 minutes goes by, an hour goes by, and you're mad at yourself for not going back to sleep, then staying in bed is not going to help you, because it's just going to make you more anxious and more frustrated, and you're not going to sleep. So what we counsel people, if that's you, to get up out of your bed, go somewhere else, pick up a book, read something very boring, just avoid the screens, avoid the TV. You can read your Bible, like you said, and then once you start falling sleepy, then go to your bed. One thing is we want to do is have our brain associate certain things with certain tasks. So we often tell our patients that the bed should only be reserved for sleep and sexual intimacy. Nothing else. Do not do your work on your bed. Do not, do nothing. Do not read your books on your bed. Because then when you're trying to sleep, your brain is already thinking about all the things you need to do, right? But if you're only associating your bed with sleep, then the moment your head hits the pillow, your brain's like, oh, it's sleepy time to go to bed. So that's why it's good to develop these habits so that you can only associate your bed with sleep. If you can't sleep, get up, do something else, come back to bed when you're feeling sleepy. Great question. Oh, yeah, that's good. Oversleeping, yeah, the question was, what about oversleeping? Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. So yes, you can oversleep, and sometimes people have what is called hypersomnia. Oftentimes, it can be something associated with depression as well, or maybe like some other condition. Sometimes, like thyroid problems or other health conditions, or even gut problems. Yeah, can be making you more fatigued, more sleepy. So that would just need to be investigated further. One thing that we say is important, like, especially if it's like a mood condition, like depression, like morning sun is so important. So if you can get outside and experience the morning sunlight, like it's gonna help you. Oftentimes, like I said, motivation is a challenge. So it's helpful to have somebody who can drag you out if you need to, because sometimes you just might not have the motivation yourself. So yeah, a good question. But yeah, if that's something that you struggle with, definitely something to work up with your doctor. Yep. Everybody's asking great questions.
In my past years, I was living in Las Vegas. I work in a mental hospital. I work in nursing homes, people with dementia, Alzheimer's, and all kind of stuff. Brain injury in Casa Colina here. So that was maybe 2 months ago that I was diagnosed with dementia. So, and I know the behavior, the symptoms, and I said, something is wrong with me. Start with my family, and I started with anxiety. At the point that I can stand taking care of my parents, getting very emotional, and things happened with my 2 sons, my son and my daughter in the past, one divorced. So people, I'm thankful because people, they've been saying, we're gonna pray for you. I appreciate whoever is praying for me, that's fine. But when you go to the brain, I share with people, the brain, you can have another surgery and you can have a transplant. No, you can't. Brain is the brain, God made it, and that's the way. Now I'm introduce myself if I wanna start a conversation, and then I said, I'm telling you because I have this. And people started to say, no, you're gonna be well, we're gonna pray for you. I know, but I work with the people and I know the brain. I saw my scan, and the doctor gave me 2 years. I've been eating healthier. Seventh-day Adventist. I'm 68. I came here, my parents sent my sister and me, sent us to learn English. I graduated from high school from San Pedro. I still having my accent and trying to, because I wasn't born here. But I tried my best, and I studied with teachers speaking good English because they're from here. So now I married my second husband, he's an American. And I noticed that I started speaking more Spanish, being forgetful, and then my family said, we just tell you you need to be here, and I just keep forgetting things. And then I started getting anxiety. I said, something is wrong with me, because I had experience with people with disabilities. And then I went to the brain neurologist, and I had dementia. And he gave me 2 years, and that's the way it is. And now I know that, I don't know how long, but that's what he says. My life is in God's hands. I'm happy. I'm not scared to tell what I have, and I'm sharing, and I want to do everything I want because I know I'm decreasing. So that's my experience.
Thank you for sharing your experience. And
Yeah.
I just want to ask you if you want to
Yeah,
keep the
of
mic.
course. Yes.
Because there might be people that are in a similar, going through a similar struggle. It might not be with dementia, but maybe with some other health struggle. And it's really hard to grapple when you are given a diagnosis of something. And it sounds like you've been able to experience peace. You've been able to, come to a place of acceptance.
Definitely.
And just like, letting God be the one to.
Oh yes, I'm so thankful. I made fun of myself. I went to the clinic that I'm going, and I'm not driving anymore because I know my limitations, and I noticed that something was wrong with me. That was when I want to turn my truck. It's automatic, and I also know how to drive stage, the other one. But I was being in my truck, and I want to turn the car, but I was scared to turn it on because I don't know, I had to have the feet on the brake, and I don't know if I do, I'll go back, and I look at the reverse or whatever. It's just a confusion in my head. I said, this is not right. And so, but I was going to say something. Oh yeah, I make a joke in one of the clinics where I went. I said, because I went like 3 days after my birthday, and the whole clinic, because they look, you need to write your day of birth, and so everybody sing happy birthday to me, and I'm living like in a movie, like it's not real, but it's real. And then one of the members of the church, he sits over there. He works in the clinic. The beautiful lady on the back, he's gave me, and pastor wife telling me, what to eat, like the walnuts, and she's been telling me another seeds. I'm doing everything on my cereal. I'm trying my best. The damage is already there. It's not gonna go. I'm increasing. Yeah. So, but I talked to God and I said, God, I'm thankful for this disease because I had a chance to tell others what I feel, what I want, because I know I'm going to be living little by little. And I'm just, my character is always be very extroverted. When I was in Mexico, my parents put us in a dance classes, and I always was in the classroom. Oh, I want to say this poem. I always not afraid to be on the front. In Mexico, we have like a drama for Mother's Day. I was the bad daughter. So I performed. All the church was crying because I like to perform. I think maybe I should be an artist, but I am that kind of person. So I took that disease I said, at least I don't have maybe the pain of the cancer, or I'm not blind. So I said, God, thank you, because you gave me time to do whatever I want and to go and visit my family and enjoy life. So I told a joke to the clinic. I said, oh, no, wait, I'm going to tell you a joke. And then they said, okay. The whole group was there. That was when my first husband divorced me, and I screamed at him, I wish God give me dementia so I don't remember about you. That was my worst to him. So now I told that joke over there at the clinic, and I said that, and then just to make that joke, I said, God, I was joking. I didn't do it that way. And all the people start laughing because, and that was my experience.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I think you said a lot there that I think we can all be encouraged by, that we can look at our struggles and make that be the end of us, right? But having the frame shift that, no, this is not the end, right? This is not the end, we're just passing through. That one day we'll not even remember, how like the little things that are happening in this world, that there's a far greater glory waiting for us. So we can deal with the little thorn in our flesh right now because of who Jesus is and what he's done for us.
Thank you guys so much. We really appreciated your coming and bringing your singing group. We have a little thank you for all of you, so you can just kind of share it with the rest. Okay, all five. Some had to leave, but the singers as well. We really appreciate your coming, and I think I've learned some things from you guys. I really appreciate it. Okay, so before we have our closing prayer, I just want to remind you about the next presentation is the second Saturday of the month. And so same time, same place. Our presenters are Anad Mohammed, who is a registered dietitian, and she's also from Loma Linda, and Dr. Gurinder Singh Bains. Okay, the middle name is Singh. I knew there was a Singh in there somewhere. And so this is going to be a really exciting presentation, as well as today's was awesome. But Dr. Gurinder Singh Bains, his presentation, along with his associate Anad Mohammed, is about what happiness and laughter does to help us to be healthy. So years ago, I had two different families in my class, and now if I can remember their names. Anyway, so should have written their names down. My brain just went flip. Dr. Stanley Tan, who was an endocrinologist, was doing research in the area of eustress, which is good stress, and he did a presentation with myself, and he did the presentation, but I had two dance groups. I one with Claremont United Methodist Church, and one with my Loma Linda students, who I taught Israeli dance, circle dance, to make them happy. And so he did a presentation, and then my groups were there to make people happy, and we had banners at the Loma Linda Retirement Center, and that was really, really fun. And then Dr. Lee Burke was his associate. Dr. Burke also studied that area, eustress, and then Dr. Singh is his associate, or Dr. Bains is his associate. So I've known two of the mentors, and so I think that this is going to be a really, really good presentation as well. Do we have any other questions before we close? Okay, thank you guys so much for, pardon me? Oh, the last song. Yes. One final question. One final question.
I just have one for the doctor. I wanted to ask you, because you talked about I don't need that. I got a loud mouth. You talked about the half a plate of vegetables. Is there anything wrong with having a nice steak on the other side of those vegetables?
That's another class.
Because you did say protein, right?
Lean protein. I did say protein. Lean protein is ideal. Oftentimes, steak tends to have a nice amount of animal fat in there, so that will definitely drive up your cholesterol levels, make you more prone for diabetes and other things. So and inflammation, big time, and acidic, yes. So acidic food, yeah, exactly. That'll make you more. So I like to let everyone know it's a spectrum. Food is a spectrum, so we have choices to make. And if we have our choice of a steak and a chicken, having a skinless chicken will be healthier than the steak. if we're gonna have a choice between the chicken and the tofu, tofu will be definitely a healthier choice for you. So if you are never gonna touch tofu, you're not gonna touch beans, then and like chicken is what you're gonna settle with, then that's gonna be the healthier choice for you. So honestly, it's like where you're at, because not everybody is like there yet to make like a change to where they can cut out all meats, dairies, all the things. Not everybody's there yet, but the little changes you can make to what you're already eating is what I recommend. If you're gonna have meats, cover it with vegetables, better than just like letting it be by itself. So everything's a choice, everything's a spectrum. The more you can have the whole food plant-based, the better. Yeah. Hopefully that answers a good question. Thank you.
All right, we're going to have Bob from Lucerne Valley
Lucerne Valley, yes.
have the closing prayer.
Let's stand if it's possible so we can stretch ourselves too and get ready to go home. I just want to say thank you for the ladies really presenting this great. And that plate of the vegetable, I think we need to increase more. And I'll tell you, we're getting older, so definitely we need to increase more. So let's bow our hands. Lord, merciful God, thank you for you giving us message. You sent us message a long time ago with Yell and White, but sometimes we still do our own thing, what we want to do. Lord, we know that things are, towards the end, it's going to be worse when it comes to even food. So the best way if we can grow our own. So thank you for the message, Lord, that we have today. Thank you for every single person who's here. May we walk away blessed. I believe that we will already going to walk away blessed from this place till we meet again. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.